Tracking crime now in Lawrence County, the owner of an infamous haunted attraction known for its extreme tactics is facing charges.
They all thought it was going to destroy the manor.
He makes people feel like they are the most important person in the world. They are the star of the show.
It's amazing to me, though, the haters, how much in love they are with me.
Push that envelope so far until things go way too far.
I'll meet you halfway.
The haunt doesn't really ever end.
It's been a year since I last talked about McKamey Manor on this YouTube channel, and a lot has happened since then. For starters, if you're new here or you just need a refresher on McKamey Manor lore, definitely go watch my McKamey Manor Exposed video. I'll have it linked down below. I would recommend watching that before diving into this one, since it goes through basically the entire history of McKamey Manor and Russ McKamey's personal history as well. But now, here we are, a year later. The Hulu documentary exposing much of the truth behind McKamey Manor came out and was viewed by millions of people worldwide. The Reckless Ben series has wrapped, which exposed even more information than I had previously reported on. The anti-McKamey Manor community has basically split off into two sides. Russ has filed lawsuits himself, and the most recent series of events involves Russ McKamey being arrested for attempted murder. I intend to pick up where I left off on my last McKamey Manor video to get you caught up to speed. And before we get started, I want to give a huge shout out to my friends over at Horror Road Trip for helping me with this video. They answered all of my questions. They were very supportive of my making of this video as well as the last one. They're great people. They've dedicated their online lives to exposing Russ and his stupid manor. They're still regularly reporting on McKamey Manor updates on their YouTube channel. They have all the good tea, and they do incredible work, so please go show your support to them and subscribe to Horror Road Trip. Also, I just want to put it out here that if you enjoy the bits of the interview I'm putting in this video with Horror Road Trip, definitely make sure you click that subscribe button, turn on notifications, because in the coming days I'm going to be uploading an extended interview with them with a lot more context, a lot more tea being spilled, so that'll be coming soon. So yeah, make sure you subscribe. While McKamey Manor is essentially dead and gone now, at one point it was a scary place to wind up at. You know what's still currently really scary though? The fact that your personal information can be found online by just about anybody, including hackers. But thankfully, today's sponsor, Aura, can help. Guys, I'm gonna just come out and say it. I got doxxed a few months ago, which is a content creator's worst nightmare. I'm not gonna go into specifics of that because I think it's still being investigated, but yeah, all you need to know is that the commentary bros on this platform are a joke. Anyway, now this certainly did come as a shock to me because about a year ago, I paid for a different service to remove me from all those pesky websites that just straight up share all of your personal information online. Little did I realize these websites are popping up all the time, so you need to have someone like Aura on your side to be constantly monitoring these websites and getting your personal information taken off the open web like this. But that's not all that Aura is about. We all need Aura because if you're watching this and you're an American, you need to know that very recently, over 2.9 billion records were stolen from national public data, which is where employers and others get all of your personal information when they're doing a background check on you. Information included in this data breach were people's full names, addresses, date of birth, phone number, and even their social security numbers. And worst of all, these hackers supposedly released all of this information for free online for anybody to find. None of us have ever been as vulnerable on the internet as we are right now. If you weren't taking precautions to protect yourself before, this is a wake-up call. You need Aura. I'm not too worried about data breaches now that I have Aura because they monitor my personal data across billions of data points, even the dark web and court records, plus a bunch of other features to keep you safe online. And should the worst case scenario happen, Aura can provide you with up to $5 million of identity theft insurance. Since you're a member of my audience, Aura is more accessible to you now than it's ever been. It's my recommendation that you check out Aura now because national public data isn't gonna do anything to help you in the aftermath of their own mistake. The good news is, you can go to my link, aura.com/SavannahMarie, to try 14 days for free. That'll be enough time for Aura to find out if any of your personal data has been exposed, and then you can take the appropriate action. Again, that's aura.com/SavannahMarie to try Aura for 2 weeks for free. Thank you, Aura, for not only sponsoring this video, but for also protecting myself and my family from any future data breaches. I really hope that you take a look into Aura for yourself as well. Now, let's get into what the heck has been going on at McKamey Manor for the past year. Where my last McKamey Manor video left off, Reckless Ben was hinting towards the existence of an infamous hard drive that was stolen from Russ McKamey years ago. I won't bore you by recapping how Ben managed to do it, but long story short, he got his hands on it. If you want to see that all play out, you need to watch Reckless Ben's video series, which is linked in the description below. Now, the significance of this hard drive is that it allegedly was supposed to contain raw footage of many Manor tours. So what we see on YouTube is a result of Russ's selective editing. What we don't see is allegedly some of the worst and likely illegal things that Russ was doing to his contestants. Remember how I mentioned that one of the biggest McKamey Manor urban legends was someone who goes by the name of Rhett being seriously injured by being dragged behind a truck?
He drugged my cousin behind his truck until my cousin was laid up bedridden for 2 weeks after being drugged by a truck from Russ. Not drugged, but dragged.
What was he dragged by? Was he just pulled by people, or what was he?
It was a chain. Well, it was a chain attached to a truck.
Oh, damn.
Through gravel, and his entire upper torso was a scab. It was missing skin, his entire upper torso.
The McKamey Manor supporters of the world used to run around claiming that it never happened and there was no proof of it. I believe we always had these pictures of Rhett's injuries, but Russ's fan base would always say that you couldn't prove that those injuries came from being dragged behind Russ's truck. That was until Reckless Ben and Danny Burke started releasing videos from the hard drive, including proof that Rhett was, in fact, dragged behind Russ's truck. And you can obviously see in the footage that Rhett was wearing a shirt, but according to these DMs leaked from Rhett himself, he claims the shirt was ripped while he was being dragged, which seems about right considering at some points Russ was dragging him through gravel.
Make a turn. I'm telling you right now, make the turn. I'm going to go over gravel right now. Go over a dirt road. Don't you let go. Don't let go. Keep your legs up. You're the one right close. God damn it!
Rhett also says that he was dragged behind the truck for what he believes to be 5 to 10 minutes, but the actual video shows the dragging going on for about 15 minutes until Russ finally decides to stop it.
This is up. Maybe we should stop. Should we stop this thing right now?
Of course, I'm going to censor these injuries out because YouTube, but I will say that a very big portion of Rhett's abdomen has been rubbed completely raw. In the actual video, the injuries are very severe and difficult to look at. Russ films them up close, like it's really bad. Russ then proceeds to dunk Rhett in the disgusting freezer water afterwards, which seems to have really done some damage because Rhett claims that after this incident, he was bedridden for 2 weeks and had to take steroid shots and antibiotics. In my non-professional opinion, yeah, dunking fresh wounds into nasty and disgusting, sludgy, sick water like this is gonna give you an infection. Go figure.
And one thing I want to point out about Rhett's video, and I've never really been able to talk about much on a live, if you hold up the picture of Rhett in the hospital and the picture of Rhett walking, those burns match exactly where the clothes are still on under him. The clothes that were stuck to his skin, which is why they didn't tear off and they got infected and dirty from that nasty water he put him in it.
Another new piece of information that came out about the car dragging is that Russ's ex-girlfriend Susan also allegedly was dragged behind a truck. Susan was actually chained to the truck and dragged by the ankle.
Me and Susan were very close. Like, we were good friends and we talked all the time. I still occasionally talk to her. When he got a girlfriend, that's the highlight of the show. She's going through as many times as she can, and every time she goes in, it's going to get more and more intense for her. Well, in this particular moment, she knew not all the stunts existed, so he was trying to show more with her because she was along for the game, basically. Same thing when I went through on my tour. I was kind of along on the lie. He normally would have people hang on or wrap the chain around their wrist, but for some reason he wanted to do it to her ankle. This time he actually tied it to her ankle. It wasn't loose, it was tied on there.
Right, because Rhett was just hanging on, right?
Yeah,
So
he was
like
hanging on with it wrapped around, but yeah.
Like a Chinese finger trap. It's on there loose, and as soon as that tension's on there, Rhett wasn't letting go. But for Susan, her legs were tied together and she was being dragged behind the truck. Well, she started screaming because she was hitting rocks and stuff in the ground. I mean, she didn't go over a dirt road, but it got her good. That's not why the live disappeared, because that was actually shown live in the Facebook group. The reason why that live was taken down was because at one point when she cried, she was holding the camera, she turned and showed the manor horn.
That's the zip line, right? The rickety old piece of shit. Okay, yeah.
And so he removed the live for that reason. He didn't feel that what happened to her there was bad.
Was she injured outside just her ankle? Because there's only a picture of the ankle that I saw.
Her back was, it was bruised up. It wasn't insane, but there was definitely markings from being dragged.
Because Rhett got f***ed up. So I can only imagine if she's being dragged by the ankle, she has less control than Rhett had. So while it appears as though Rhett's injuries were probably the worst to come out of the truck dragging, he wasn't even the only one. There were probably others, right?
I got dragged behind the truck.
You did?
Yeah, I did everything.
Were you hurt?
I cheated, right? Russ didn't know. And when I showed up, I had sewn BMX padding into my onesie between the layers, because I didn't trust the dude to not shoot me with paintballs. So he put me on the back of the truck, and it was like surfing. I mean, it was fun. I will say, in my time, so like when I was heavily involved from 2018 to 2020, nearly everybody that made it to the night portion did that.
The second tour footage released from the hard drive was this woman's tour, Marissa. I mentioned her in my last video. She's done a few interviews with Reckless Ben, but according to her, Russ convinced Marissa to come be an actor for a tour to save the manor, adding on that if she didn't agree to help Russ make this movie, the manor would shut down and it would be all her fault.
He had convinced me that the manor was about to be shut down and it was dying and like nothing was going to work anymore. He convinced me that I needed to go back out to like save the manor, and I thought that's what I was doing.
I believe it was in Danny's video, but Chris makes a really good point about watching Marissa sign the contract. As a refresher, the contract is extremely long, and Russ has the contestants film it while they're reading it out loud, presumably to protect himself in the event of a lawsuit. But while Marissa's reading, her head is being slammed into the table, and during some parts, Russ is speaking right up in her ear. And as Chris pointed out, this could be considered her signing it under duress, which would invalidate the agreement. And while I'm not going to sit here and say that every single McKamey Manor contestant has signed their contracts under duress, it's very clear to me that Marissa did anyway, in my opinion. But if Marissa was just an actor, she shouldn't have anything to worry about, right? It's all fake, and she's just doing it to make a viral video to save the manor, right? Of course that's what Marissa thought going into it. That's what she expected. But Russ was motivated by something else. Information. You see, this happened right after all of Russ's actors quit on him because they didn't want to be held liable for how extreme Russ's little show had become, leading up to him being run out of San Diego and into Tennessee. If you remember, the city of San Diego told Russ that he could no longer operate the haunt inside his personal residence, so Russ got access to this abandoned mall, and he was able to film this tour with Marissa in there. Apparently the guy, who appears as the more hands-on actor with Marissa, knew a security guard for this abandoned mall, and that's how they were able to get inside. Side note though, this same dude, his name is Christopher Michael Cunningham, got arrested in 2021 for storming the Capitol on January 6th, if that tells you what kind of dude he is. A real shining member of society. And he unfortunately got off pretty easy for this, and unless he violated his probation, he's already served his punishment of 12 months of probation, 3 months of home detention and community service, along with an $1,100 fine and $500 in restitution. These are some fine, upstanding people here. Anyway, insurrectionists aside, Russ didn't hold back at all with Marissa. What Marissa thought was going to be a fake tour for publicity purposes turned into her being pepper sprayed and having her head shaved against her will. Like, she specifically told Russ not to shave her head, and he did it anyway because he wanted to know where his props went. If you recall, Carol and Russ had just split after a 15-year-long relationship. She had been the one majorly funding McKamey Manor while it was in San Diego, so after Russ decided to cheat on Carol with Holly, Carol left, and with the help of others, took most of the haunt props with her.
Everything's gone. Everything's gone.
They also believe that an ex-actor had hacked Russ's computer and stole all of his footage. This resulted in our special little insurrectionist interrogating Marissa, holding her down and dunking her underwater to get her to spill everything she knows, which wasn't anything they really wanted to hear from her. The entire thing was obviously extremely traumatizing for Marissa, and at the end you can see Holly holding her and comforting her, despite the fact that Holly would occasionally step in as an actor herself. Honestly, I think Russ truly gets off on watching his girlfriends do terrible things to contestants in the haunts. And needless to say, in this tour with Marissa, Russ got the shots he was hoping for at the expense of Marissa's mental health and well-being. Now, obviously, these two tours didn't make up the entirety of all of what was on that hard drive. In Ben's video, he blurs out some thumbnails of files that were on the hard drive. I guess I had assumed that they were sexual in nature. And if you'll remember, there was an interview posted a few years back where Holly is talking to that Cadis Silvis guy, Rich Ponder, and she asked if he had an alleged tape between her and Russ. Rich says he did have it, but he immediately destroyed it.
There's a tape of me being exploited around, and someone was selling it. But if you could, I don't know, elaborate, or because I'm
Okay.
totally in the dark at this stuff.
We were trying to chase down the footage from the Marissa show, as well as the other shows done under the McKamey Manor Presents Katie Silva's banner. That ex-admin or whatever he had sent his broken hard drive to reached out to me and says, I've got your footage. Stuff from you that doesn't require or that would require an adult model release, my copy has been destroyed. It was destroyed immediately. I know other people got copies of that hard drive. I'm not exactly sure who they were.
So I personally assumed that it was stuff like that. However, I had it confirmed to me that there were no sex tapes on that hard drive, but the thumbnails that were blurred did contain some light nudity that wasn't sexual in nature. So what that should tell you is it wasn't consensual. The good news is that from what I've been told, like I haven't seen the videos, but it was mostly just Russ being a total asshole to someone, framing it like it was a prank and then filming it. That's all I'll say, because I don't want to further victimize anybody. But it seems as though Ben and Danny have released most of the important and damning stuff contained on that hard drive.
There's a lot of stuff on that hard drive. There's around 2 terabytes worth of stuff on that hard drive. Some of it's just disgusting. A lot of it's irrelevant, but if you look at everything as a whole, it paints a very clear picture of kind of who Russ is and what he does. There is a ton of stuff that I'm still finding out. Like his entire location, everywhere he went for about 6 months is geotagged. So a lot of that stuff hasn't been released because unless you put it in as a whole to paint that picture, it doesn't really make sense. There's still a lot of stuff that we're kind of waiting on.
Do you guys have plans to release more?
That's kind of up to all 3 of us.
I do think that the things that were released with the victim's permission, I believe, Brandon, right?
Yeah.
By Ben and Danny, I think those were some of the biggest as far as how he treated contestants.
There's always been a lot of questions around like, hey, why did you go to Tennessee? And the hard drive kind of makes almost a daily chronicle from Trans World 2017 until he is fully moved and starting his first show in Tennessee. Like there's a day by day chronicle, and you get to see pictures almost daily of what happened during that time period. And I think that's kind of cool.
Meanwhile, a few other videos from the hard drive surfaced on the McKamey Manor Exposed YouTube channel that are just stupid nothingness. If you want to watch them for yourself, go for it. Just know you're not missing much. For example, there's a video of Russ trying to teach his ex-girlfriend Holly how to film the tours the way he wants her to, adding this cute little touch.
I will kill you if you do that.
There's a 30-minute long video of Russ filming his San Diego property after Carol left, claiming she robbed him and took everything, along with a couple other pointless clips.
And I was totally robbed, by Carol Schultz and whoever else she had help, probably the ex-actors, etc.
The importance of this hard drive was really hyped up in a way that everyone thought that if it ever got released and shown to the world, it would destroy Russ McKamey and shut McKamey Manor down forever. Ben and Danny took the hard drive to the police, and they refused to watch the footage, let alone investigate anything. While we now have proof of Rhett's injuries, and more proof that Russ is a monster who harms people against their will, the rest of the hard drive, at least from the public perspective, was kind of a letdown because it didn't bring about the resolution that we were all hoping for and expecting. I feel like from the public perspective, it was kind of just like, oh, that's it? But obviously there's a lot we didn't see. So, I don't know, were you guys, like, satisfied?
There's small things, and maybe to the public doesn't see it because they're watching, like, the big picture, and they're looking for... I mean, what happened to Rhett was serious. Rhett seriously got hurt, right? That was a big deal. But there was subtle little things in there that we've been trying to point out. The lack of safety measures.
There are definitely some juicy parts, but was there like 7 smoking guns on it? No. But it paints a clearer picture, at the very least for me.
The secret hard drive being exposed was ultimately ineffective, but it turns out that something else was about to take the story on a wild ride. This section here is more funny to me than anything. So as we all know, Russ believes that he can do no wrong. He believes he's a widely loved and appreciated figure in entertainment, and there aren't really that many McKamey Manor haters out there. He calls these people the low information crowd, or LICs, suggesting that we're all liars who hate on him for no reason. So when he caught wind that Hulu was creating a documentary about McKamey Manor, he took to Twitter to brag about it. On August 26, 2023, Russ tweeted, "Can't wait to show you all what we have in store in the near future with Hulu." So this obviously suggests that Russ was working in tandem with Hulu to produce a documentary that was gonna put McKamey Manor back on the map. Certainly after watching it, people were going to flock to McKamey Manor for their chance to see what the manor was all about. And then the trailer came out.
Every horror movie has a monster. I want everyone to know the truth on Russ.
I started to get some weird feelings from Russ. How can we stop him?
Russ is the great danger. It's not gonna shock me if someone dies one day.
The day the documentary dropped, Russ began to spiral.
Erica says, just got to watching the doc. Oh, the hate documentary. All right. Using all my footage. Wow, did you see the movie? Nah, I'm not going to watch it. I already know everything about it. I know they stole all of my footage to make it. They would not have had a movie without stealing my footage. It just makes the manor more popular. I've been getting blown up like crazy of people wanting to take the tour. I had over 8,000 new requests on the website, and it shut it down. Giving me support, saying, you know, what a bunch of idiots those people were, and how it was totally a one-sided hate movie made by haters. Yeah, I'm getting like phone calls every 2 seconds. I got several hundred new text messages requesting tours, and it's all because of it's all because of the movie. If you think they're like really cool and interesting, then I want nothing to do with you. So, all these haters who are obsessed with me are so jealous because they want a little bit of fame. They are addicted to fame, and I know they thought it was going to really destroy me. It was made by the haters, for the haters. They're so jealous of me in the manor. It's like crazy. The great thing about today, they all thought it was going to destroy the manor, and all it did was get a whole lot of interest. Nuts. It's amazing to me, though, the haters, though, you know, how much in love they are with me, because you know they are. They are obsessed, and they think they're so clever and stuff, but they got no life. They have no life except yours truly. They're just nothing but liars and people seeking attention, and then all you have to do is look at their real exit interviews after their tours, and you can see what they really felt about the real show. And all it did was make us more popular. So the other problem I have with the movie is that it just isn't entertaining. They were working on this thing for a couple of years, right? Are you telling me you couldn't make even an entertaining hate movie? So it was just really, to me, kind of amateur. I think my movies are a lot scarier, more intense, and more entertaining than that movie was. But that's just a filmmaker talking about another filmmaker. But it just wasn't entertaining. It was boring. It just wasn't interesting.
And bless their hearts, I mean, they tried.
Clearly, someone was not very happy with how this documentary came out, complaining that the documentary stole his footage. You know, the footage that he posted publicly. The filmmakers used it in a transformative manner, so therefore it falls under fair use. And for the next few weeks, Russ would continue pushing this narrative, telling people not to watch or support it, calling it boring, and downplaying its validity. His Facebook posts were obsessive, long, and rambly, and he came up with a rule where if you want to get into McKamey Manor's official Facebook group, you have to send Russ a video of yourself and a picture of your driver's license.
If you're real, I'm going to give you the test that I give everyone that I communicate with, or people that try to join the group, or anything. Everybody has to do the same thing. Are you ready? And it only takes a second to do so. Let's see if you're actually the real deal. So what you need to do is right here on Messenger, just hold the phone up to your little face, hit the little button, and send me like a 20-second video saying, hey, it's me, it's Carrie, hi, I'm real, right? And then also send me a picture of your driver's license. Now, I don't need to see the address. I don't need the license number. But it just needs to verify that you are who you say you are. And I have to do that with everybody. You probably know that, right? So whenever anybody tries to join the closed group or tries to take a tour or this or that, we have to do the whole process. And that includes when I just sit and yap with people online. I have to know that they really are who they are. Okay, it's in your court. Takes 2 seconds. Let's see if you're the real deal. Drum roll, please.
He was even featured at a local Tennessee bar called Nirvana Roadhouse, where they were hosting a showing for the documentary. This wasn't just some random occurrence. It seems like Russ has hosted karaoke events there in the past, so this event was hardly a coincidence. Russ wanted to show up to a local bar where he's familiar with the bar owners and its patrons, so he could have a group of like-minded people surrounding him to stroke his ego and say, yeah, they all suck, don't they? Fortunately for us, someone went to the bar this night and filmed some clips of Russ at this event while he was on one of his rampages. They also filmed him while he was watching the film and had a little bit of a conversation with him. And he's just as unhinged as you can imagine. So let's go through some of those clips from that night, because it's fun to watch Russ spiral.
And the beauty is that all these interviews from these four people, there's four people in this movie, right? And they go through the whole thing, and they're the ones that you continue to see, these four individuals. So I've got the real interviews from them after they took their tour. And they went multiple times, so if it was bad.
So did they even reach out to you for comment? Or like,
they did at the very end. And the director tried to get me in a lot, but I was like, I'm not going to be because you guys just say I said, all you're doing is taking my footage off of YouTube. You're not even doing anything original. You're just stealing my footage. You're going into my personal Facebook account, you know, and they just had to edit and cut. So the only thing original in there are the interviews. But like I was saying, so all these, just keep in mind when you're watching it, all these interviews that you're seeing, and I'll play the real one for you after this, and you can hear, I mean, it contradicts everything they're saying, right? Yeah. Because all the interviews are like, oh, Russ is the best, he's the greatest thing ever, can't wait to come back again, and I'll be there next week. You know, and so I don't know if Hulu didn't realize I had them or...
This is basically Russ's main talking point when he's criticizing the documentary. After every Manor tour, Russ tells the contestants that they have to film an exit interview for him. Russ would start reposting these exit interviews on his Facebook as if they prove anything. Every McKamey Manor critic who's gone through a tour, especially during his later days in San Diego and the early days in Tennessee, has come out and said that they felt like they were making those exit interviews under duress, or they were saying what they knew Russ wanted to hear because they just wanted to be done and move on from the experience. They described Russ as an overbearing, demanding, and threatening figure over them. They felt like they had no choice. Can you please please elaborate on the reasons why your initial interviews don't align with what you were saying in the Hulu doc?
When he asked me to do my initial first interview, he sent me a list of questions for one. And the second thing is he begged me to do it. At the time, he was saying that there was somebody named Scott Franks that was coming after him. And if I didn't do this quote unquote interview and answer these questions on camera and send to him, you know, he was going to get in a ton of trouble. And at the time, I was his friend. I thought I was helping him out. I didn't realize that he would try to use that as ammo against me at some point. But you know, essentially that's why. I would imagine that anybody that's kind of come out against him and kind of seen the quote unquote light would say the same thing. Because here's the deal. I also defended him in a nationally syndicated magazine as well. I was his friend at the time.
I was drinking that Kool-Aid so much at that time. I mean, it was bad. Like, I was mad about the being buried alive because that was one thing that I didn't want to do. I wasn't in a relationship with the guy, but like an abusive relationship, you start thinking, was it my fault? Well, I did show up. I did. I knew there was a chance, but I still went. While I was mad at him, I was more mad at myself, and I didn't know where I was with it. And he was like, you got a chance to do a real good one. You were the first one to do the Manor horn. You can make up this whole story.
But also, didn't you break the Manor horn at one point too? Yeah, I remember that.
I was the first one on it that jumped, and the only reason why I jumped was I knew what it was, right? I mean, it was a good trick on how he got you up there and to scare you. And most people didn't jump for that reason, but I knew what it was, so I just leaped right off. I thought he was messing with me because I didn't land hard. It snapped. I didn't know it because I'm wearing headphones, I'm blindfolded, and he had told me that the middle area was full of snakes and a bunch of tall grass I was going to go over. I start going down this thing, and all of a sudden I'm coasting and I'm feeling tall grass, and I'm like, oh my god, a minute, he planned for me to land there. And so I start freaking out, thinking that I'm in with all these snakes, and he comes running up screaming, are you okay, like freaking out. Come to find out, the pole at the end that I was supposed to go to wasn't enough weight, and it snapped in half, and basically it just dropped me the 30 feet.
But even though you knew like what the Manor horn was, you still thought there would be snakes there, even though you knew?
We're outside, and he did have an open field, and so in my head, I'm a city guy, I don't go out into the country, and I see a bunch of tall grass. I assume there's nothing but poisonous snakes in that tall grass. I'm not going in it.
Hearing the stories that Chris has told me about his friendship at the time with Russ, if you're going to be in his life as a friend or a mod or whatever, the haunt doesn't really ever end. The manipulation, the smoke and mirrors, as he calls it, which is really just lying, it never ends. Little things, you know, to get in his head, and then you're like, is this part of the tour that's going to be coming up?
Even if even if you're not like actively on a tour, he's still like being manipulative, and I mean, I'll give it to Russ. Like, I'm sure he very clearly is good at manipulating people.
I think a lot of it is he makes people feel like they are the most important person in the world. They are the star of the show.
So Russ can sit here and claim that they did these interviews voluntarily all he wants, but the truth is that these people were manipulated by Russ, and they were just following his demands. Also, it's important to mention that, I mean, maybe not in the case of Chris and Brandon, and maybe some others as well, but at least in the case for some of these people, Russ has his cult members on a leash, like a pack of rabid dogs that are just ready to attack at a moment's notice. And these people have run some of these people off the internet. They've called people's work and harassed them just because they spoke out against Russ McKamey. So, obviously there's a lot of incentives to just kind of do what Russ wants and get out. Even if Russ wasn't specifically word for word telling them, hey, you need to give me a good review or else, there's enough of a threat that his cult will essentially force you into hiding that it's not even worth it to try to push back at all. If a participant is forced to give an exit interview either directly after the tour ends or like after they get to their hotel room, and then they say one thing, and then even days, weeks, months, years down the line they say, this is how I actually felt, then that is completely valid. Russ saying, I have the real interviews means absolutely nothing, and it doesn't invalidate what people are saying now. But anyway, let's get back to this bar footage.
That's bullshit. I'm the monster. Asshole.
After Russ's pre-show spiral, he and what sounds like 3 other audience members take a seat and begin to watch the film. Russ often speaks up and defends himself or over-explains things, which that in and of itself is a natural response that someone might have when they're trying to rid themselves of guilt or anxiety. It's also indicative of a person trying to control the narrative. Russ's insecurities are having their shining moment in this footage, so let's continue.
So that girl there was the first person that ever took the McKamey Manor tour, the new version in San Diego. And she went with a Marine gal. She had the best time ever. Best time ever.
Hey everybody, it's Russ.
Hi! Hey, Russ! So that was Holly, my old girlfriend. I was testing a stunt out on her. That's old San Diego. Also, it's important to understand that we do nothing ever in our haunt in McKamey Manor. These other extreme haunts, they're all and the one thing I really get upset about is one girl insinuates that something happened to her.
Are made
and I have that on video that
face.
nothing ever happened. We've never pulled someone's tooth, ever. That's a little secret right there. Ever. So in Tennessee, when you say you're done, you're done. Show's over. We have to. Why has nobody ever had a lawsuit? Why has nobody ever gone to the police? If things were really that bad, you would go to the police, wouldn't you? Of course. We've had thousands of contestants, and there's not one lawsuit, and no one's ever made a charge against us at any law enforcement agency. So that's it in a nutshell, right? If it was really going on, if you really felt that those things happened to you, I'd be the first one to that police department, right? Of course. Understand, folks, the waiver is a mind game, not reality. Those crazy things I say in there get in your head, right? You know, all the rough stuff you see in San Diego. San Diego's rough. Nobody in 35 years has ever had a broken bone. You can't do somebody that's illegal. I can't harm someone that's illegal no matter what they sign.
Russ, no one has sued you because most of your contestants don't even realize that your 40-page contract isn't even legally binding, so they don't think that they can sue you. Just like Russ said, torturing people isn't legal even if they sign a contract. So that in and of itself, if I'm understanding correctly, invalidates the contract on its own. But add on the amount of reckless negligence going on at McKamey Manor with the nasty freezer water that's certainly a breeding ground for infection, the morgue that's covered in other people's hair. The place is disgusting, and people are being harmed regardless of what his stupid waiver says. He's taking half-truths and running with it. Yes, Russ, up until this point, no one has sued you. But when he says it's because he's done nothing wrong, that's just a straight-up lie. It's because your manipulative ass has convinced these people that they can't sue you, that it's not even an option, and they don't know any better to say otherwise. You can see in this clip that Russ makes a few glances at the camera. It's at this point that he knows he's being filmed, so he moves across the bar to sit next to this person when she strikes up a conversation with him, pretending to be a fan. Russ is easily swayed by flattery, so he agrees to chat with her for a while. This person does a really good job at using his own defensive talking points to make it seem like she's on his side, and believes everything he says. A lot of this conversation is hard to hear, but here are the main parts that I could make out.
Have you never thought about like doing a haunted house like in Tennessee where you could like financially benefit? Like, because people would be crazy about it. They would eat it up. It would be so rich.
It'd be hard because of the zoning and coding and stuff, and so many people don't want us around that they just make it money.
Yeah. So pretty soon it's going to get to the gnarly stuff where they really start attacking me, right? It's not about the manor anymore. It's about Russ. So, Nyla, I hope they don't give you a hard time for having me out here.
Ain't nobody gonna give me a hard time.
No, they're trying.
Like telling me that I was just going to support an abuser.
Isn't that nuts? Isn't that just crazy?
Yeah. Everybody was like, he's a pedophile.
You have a dark side. Like, I have a dark side too, but you know, you gotta be kind of dark to do this, right?
Not really, though. I mean,
you don't think you're...
No.
You don't even consider yourself dark.
I'm not some He's a strange guy at all.
I mean, obviously, we're sitting here right here with you, and like, we're not like, I have to go, you know?
I'm a guy that's never been drunk in his life, never had a cigarette, never
Right,
had
right.
a cup of coffee.
Following this weird spiral and all of these Facebook Lives he was doing trying to defend himself, Russ went silent. He was gone for 2 months. That's very unlike Russ. But he came back on January 5th, 2024 to say Happy New Year and also to claim that he had 30,000 people trying to get in for a tour. That's doubtful. And he mentions he wanted to start doing shows again.
We're back, and I think it's time that we get a show together. What do you think? I think so. Now, I've got like literally 30,000 emails to go through, people that are looking to take tours. But if there's somebody that's here watching this, that's a faster situation than me trying to contact people on email, message me and we'll get everything going for you, and we'll try to find somebody fun and entertaining for all the fans to watch. Okay, so I hope everything has been going fantastic. It's all good on this end. Looking forward to getting the shows back together. McKamey Manor is alive and well. As always, it's never been shut down, ever, and it's not going to be. So, yeah.
I guess this would be a good place to mention that it's been over a year since Russ has had a legitimate McKamey Manor tour. No one has taken a tour since the Ben and Danny days, pretty much. But who can blame Russ for that? Russ was surrounded by chaos at this point, and he was working on a redemption plan of his own. So yes, the Hulu documentary was extremely successful, and Russ was very upset about it. So upset, in fact, that he started throwing around some lawsuits. He actually sued Hulu alongside Justin, aka The Wolf, who is the guy who appeared in Ben and Danny's YouTube series, and he also appeared at the end of the Hulu documentary, openly admitting that he hacked into Russ's email.
The biggest thing we found, though, was we actually got into Russ's emails. Russ has a very old email service, and that's where he messed up. The company that Russ has for the email has a phone number, so I called them and I was like, hey, I forgot my password. So they says, okay, what's your name? Russ McKamey. I was like, okay, well, when's the last time you were on your email? Gonna make a good guess. I'll say, oh, it was yesterday. She's like, oh, all right, yeah, that was correct. I changed the password for my email address, and then I locked him out. We hit the jackpot. We found that he wasn't paying his taxes on his barn. This is from Russ's son. You absolutely disgust me. So I took those emails, I took screenshots, and I showed those. Here's the proof right here. This is like something you're never gonna see anywhere else. I put everything on my Facebook page.
I mean, this is obviously fraud, and you wouldn't catch me going on a major streaming platform and admitting that I committed an actual crime, but hey, it was a juicy story to say the least. The grounds on which Russ was able to file this lawsuit arise from what the lawsuit calls violations of Mr. McKamey's privacy and publicity rights under federal and Tennessee law. Basically, Russ is suing the Wolf for the privacy violation, which, yes, we have plenty of evidence to show that the Wolf definitely did that. He admitted to it himself. And then he attempted to sue Hulu for publicizing and celebrating the Wolf's crime. They also claim that Hulu violated the Personal Rights Protection Act by making money off of his likeness. I mean, people are gonna argue this, but I think the line between documentary filmmaking and journalism is very blurred. While they're two totally different industries, a documentary is just journalism with the added flair of storytelling, entertainment, and emotion. And guess what? Federal courts have upheld the inclusion of documentary filmmakers as journalists under the Press Act. And, ooh, what's that? We're in America. Hi, we have freedom of the press here. The lawsuit claims Hulu had to invade Russ's privacy in order to make this content, despite the fact that this is all public record, aside from hacking into his email, obviously. But that was the Wolf's doing, not Hulu. The hacking took place in 2020, long before this documentary was made. The Wolf had published the emails to his McKamey Manor Exposed Facebook page, and then shared them with the filmmakers long after the fact. This lawsuit seems to suggest that the Wolf hacked into Russ's emails for the documentary, when the reality is these two things took place on two totally separate timelines. Hulu allegedly reached out to Russ multiple times and had personal communications with him, essentially begging him to participate in the documentary and give his perspective. Russ had every opportunity to set the record straight on his end, but he didn't, and that's on him. The lawsuit states that a spokesperson for Hulu claimed, obviously there were legal concerns about how much of certain things we were allowed to use because he didn't participate in the film. film. Obviously, he posted a lot of these things publicly on the internet, so it changes the approach. And then in the next paragraph it states, "It's not clear why defendants believe that they can use Mr. McKamey's protected voice and likeness without his permission because they obtained both from content he posted publicly on the internet." Now, Russ's lawyer seems to be like a legit experienced attorney. I looked him up and that was the conclusion I drew from what I saw. Knowing how lawyers operate, it probably shouldn't come as a surprise, but in my opinion, this comes off as playing dumb. What do you mean it's not clear why they used Russ's likeness and his footage? How about it's because they're allowed to? The documentary is protected under fair use because the filmmakers used it in a transformative manner. And maybe if Russ had decided to participate in the documentary, then the filmmakers wouldn't have had to rely on his public content to form the most obvious and true narrative, given the information they had. That's just a thought. Come on, it's clear as day to me. Hulu had this case against them dismissed on September 3rd of this year. Pacer says that this was a voluntary dismissal. Now, I'm not a law professional, but this sounds like Russ is the one to agree to dismiss the case against them. All of these documents are on Pacer Monitor, but it costs $5.50 per document to download, and quite honestly, I don't care enough to pay that. But in my opinion, it would be unfair to say that Hulu made all of this money using Russ's likeness. Whether Russ likes it or not, he is a public figure. People know him and he has a culty following. He has appeared in a lot of media, including radio shows and mainstream television. And quite frankly, I would argue that Hulu profited off of the story of McKamey Manor and the way that they told it, rather than reducing it down to making money off of Russ. They created a unique product based on a true story that factually involves Russ heavily. Reporting on this story is really not against any rules. Now, to address the wolf in this case, the lawsuit against him is still active. Russ has not dropped the complaint against him. In my opinion, the wolf is an idiot. I say this for more reasons than just one that I'm not going to get into, but strictly speaking on this case, like, how stupid do you have to be to go on a major streaming platform and admit that you committed a crime? Listen, us McKamey Manor haters, we loved hearing that Russ's son refuses to speak to him. We loved hearing that Russ allegedly has not paid all of his taxes. Does that make it okay? No. And I'm not going to sit here and defend the wolf in this case, because I agree that him gaining unauthorized access to Russ's personal email account was wrong, and the wolf took it way too far. I hate Russ as much as the rest of you, but when basic human decency exists in a person, they don't do shit like that, like even to their enemies. The wolf is not a decent person at all, in my opinion, and he couldn't keep his stupid mouth shut, and he got himself in trouble. Like, thanks for the tea, dude, but you done goofed. Up until this lawsuit, you could go into the Wolf's Facebook group and read all of these emails. Here's the screenshot of the Wolf sharing those screenshots to the group. He wasn't trying to keep any of this to himself, clearly. The Wolf wrote, "Since I got a ton of requests, here are most of the emails with a lot of personal info censored. I'm not Russ, and as bad as he is, I won't stoop to his level." The fact that he did this and still thinks that he's not stooping to Russ's level is beyond delusional to me. But anyway, some of the things I had to leave out, just as an example, are Russ's current driver's license, as well as Haley Day's, which, if you remember, is one of Russ's ex-girlfriend's, actual full name. Yes, Haley, I've known it for some years now and kept it a secret. You're welcome. Other than that, enjoy. I went looking for this post in the Wolf's group. I didn't see it, so that probably means it was deleted, which makes sense considering the circumstances. The damage has already been done though. Like, those emails were viewed by thousands of people in the Wolf's Facebook group. That post was up for a few years, dude. The lawsuit claims that Russ knew his email account was hacked in 2020, but he was unaware of who did it until the documentary aired. And now that Wolf confirmed it himself, Russ was finally able to take action. And the lawsuit claims that the Wolf was running around telling people Russ couldn't do anything because the statute of limitations, and also because they have no proof it was me. Well, aside from you admitting it to millions of people who watched the documentary, sure, but okay.
But yeah, the emails are real. I may or may not have gotten into his email. that's what was there.
And, as the lawsuit states, the Wolf's not a lawyer, and he seems to greatly misunderstand what punitive damages are. I found this legal Q&A website where an attorney who has been licensed for 35 years says that while the statute of limitations do apply to punitive damages, it varies case by case, and fraud cases specifically have 3 years from the date of discovery. Since Russ discovered that the Wolf was the one who committed fraud against him on October 12th, 2023, which is the date that the Hulu documentary dropped, then Russ is well within the statute of limitations here, if I'm understanding correctly. The lawsuit is a bit dramatic, suggesting that this situation, both the emails and the documentary, caused Russ to consider unaliving himself. However, we all know that Russ has a history of threatening to unalive himself as a manipulation tactic. As I covered in my last video, Russ's own daughter said that he did this to her and her mother. All of Russ's ex-girlfriends have made statements regarding this topic as well, suggesting that he tried to do this to them too.
He attempted to commit suicide in front of me to get me to stay, which he also did to Carol many times, and to my mom. It's a tactic he uses to get people to stay.
As much as I don't want to discount someone's inner turmoil with their desire to live, with Russ, I'll never believe it, given his history. Russ claims he's entitled to punitive damages from the Wolf due to emotional distress, the alleged conspiracy to inflict said emotional distress, the Wolf's intentional unlawful misconduct, a loss of employment because I guess Russ had to quit his job at Walmart due to people showing up at his work, which is obviously not cool, and a very clear invasion of his privacy, which that's valid. Honestly, as much as I hate to defend Russ, at least in the situation with the Wolf, I think Russ's prayers for relief are valid. Now, Russ is demanding literally millions of dollars in compensation from the Wolf specifically, which is a little absurd, and the Wolf definitely doesn't have millions of dollars, but I just hope that the Wolf is punished accordingly. I really do. And one final thing I want to touch on from this lawsuit is how Russ mentions that because of the documentary, an investigation was launched against him by the Tennessee State Attorney General. And Russ had to hire legal counsel to handle that mess also. Well, if it isn't the consequences of your own actions, Russ. That whole story goes back a few years as well, so let's get into that. So apparently back in 2019, Russ was in hot water with the state of Tennessee, and none of us really knew about it. The reason why it hadn't been brought up until now is because Chris from Horror Road Trip was under a strict NDA contract with Hulu for his involvement in the documentary. Chris used to be Russ's best friend, and he spent a lot of time with him personally, so he had a lot of knowledge about Russ that no one really knew about. Once the NDA had lapsed, however, Chris was finally able to talk about what he knew. Turns out that this little bit of information that Chris had would be far more significant than any of us would have expected.
2019, Russ did an interview with, he thought it was just some random, kid in college doing an internship. He didn't know where it was. He didn't know this guy worked for Fox News. And it went viral. Things went off the hook. I remember waking up one morning and we're on every radio station, we're on every Good Morning show, the news is talking about us. He's like, I'm coming to Michigan, man, I need to get away for a while. So he comes up to Michigan and hangs out, and somebody called the city about possible zoning issues. The Manor Horn was one of the biggest issues because if he had taken any money for that, that is considered an amusement park ride. And so the amusement park commission got into it, and Russ was like, well, everything's donations, it's not that. Talked his way out of that one. But where they got him was the barn.
On November 4th, 2019, the Tennessee Department of Commerce and Insurance's Division of Fire Prevention and Codes Enforcement Section, quite the mouthful, showed up to Russ's property and did an inspection. The inspectors found 7 issues with the property, most specifically the big red barn on his property. Well, it's not red anymore. He painted it green suspiciously. Inspectors claim that the barn is considered a special amusement building and therefore is required to have a fire detection system installed by a licensed Tennessee fire alarm company. They specified that this fire detection system in the barn needed to include safety lights at a walking level, exit markers, and a pre-recorded message that would play in the event of a fire that instructs people to proceed to the nearest exit, none of which were present at the the time of this inspection. They demanded that illuminated exit signs and smoke detectors be installed in the barn as well because, well, the barn didn't have those either. As a matter of fact, the barn had no electricity at all, so the inspectors demanded that Russ have licensed electricians install electrical power, which would probably be a very expensive job. What Russ was doing instead was just chaining extension cords and power strips into the barn from his house on the property. This is obviously dangerous, and the inspectors said that this cannot be Russ's permanent wiring, and they demanded that he stop using them inside the barn. They also demanded that fabric inside of the barn be fireproofed, and I'm assuming that's because that's where Russ has all of his contestants' onesies hanging. Those are obviously a fire hazard.
He had props in there, he had sets in there. They said this isn't up to code. There's extension cords laying in puddles. There is no fire exit signs. There's no sprinkler system.
And you're like chaining people and putting them in cages and stuff, like,
and
in
dunking them in disgusting water
place.
and, you know, all the other things.
If a match went up in that barn, it is, inside that barn is lined with all the onesies throughout the years.
Yes.
It is the creepiest serial killer type thing you will ever walk into in your life.
The inspectors demanded that all of these things be fixed before Russ was allowed to use the barn for his entertainment purposes, and he was required to send verification of the contractor's licenses before the complaint could be closed. Russ was given 7 days to submit a plan of corrective action, which could just simply be a Word document written by Russ detailing that he understands what he needs to do in order to legally continue to operate McKamey Manor at this property. I would assume that he sent this over because obviously nothing ever came from this, but also allegedly Russ never did any of this. And we know that because Cecil, Russ's assistant friend who was on site during Ben's tour, who later dumped Russ and has been speaking out against him ever since, confirmed that Ben's tour did in fact take place inside of that barn, and that the barn was not equipped with any of the things listed in the complaint.
He couldn't afford to get these things taken care of.
Of course.
He just said everything's moved out of the barn and nobody will ever be in the barn again. And
Yeah.
they said absolutely. As long as there is never anyone seen in this barn again, you're good to go. He had to have people come out and inspect to see that all the equipment was taken out of the barn, which it was. It was taken out and put into those storage containers there on the property, which those you don't need fire coating for. He moved the stuff in there, which why not just leave it in there? I don't get it. We thought, okay, well, it's in there. It's, you know, and I had always figured, okay, it's always like that. But I know about this, and I stay quiet with it for years. Ben does his series. I see Ben go through it. None of it clicks with me. Cecil calls me up and he was like, Chris, Ben's podcast, not being able to use the barn, I've only been in the barn every time. And I was like, what? He was like, yeah, Ben was in the barn.
Ben was in the barn.
So Ben's tour actually took place in that barn.
Yes.
So I'm assuming because Ben was in there, Russ added those sprinkler systems and put those easements in, right?
Nope.
Sure as shit, I see the onesies on the wall, and I was like, we gotta go frame by frame, and we did. It was a perfect ending for Ben's video because it went so full circle.
Cecil says Russ instructed him to aim the camera down to the floor while inside the barn and only film from a very specific angle so there would not be any video proof of manor tours taking place inside the barn. But Ben points out that at one point in his tour, Cecil backed up too far, exposing the giant closed barn doors. Closed barn doors, yeah. And this is important to mention because according to the report, Mr. McKamey stated to us during our walkthrough that at no time is any door on any of the buildings ever closed and locked. He is there with the participants at all times, and if any issue ever comes up, the participation stops. Obviously, there are some elements of concern in this statement because, hello, what is that, Russ? Those are some closed-ass barn doors if I've ever seen them. And also, I mean, come on, we all know that Russ doesn't actually stop if a manor participant wants him to stop. If you need further confirmation of Ben having been in the barn during his tour, if we compare Ben's tour with this video of the barn from the hard drive, you can see the horizontal boards are exactly the same. Yeah, Ben was definitely in that barn during his tour. The barn that the state of Tennessee told Russ that he could not bring contestants into until he fixes an expensive laundry list of things, yeah, That's the barn. This is what we're talking about. With all of that proof in hand, Ben and Danny and all those people submitted it to the proper authorities. And alongside the success of the Hulu documentary, the Attorney General of Tennessee finally launched an official investigation into McKamey Manor. Meanwhile, this group of people have been trying for years to prove that Russ is a menace to society, a scary and dangerous man, a minor-attracted person, and someone who's capable of causing serious harm to people. And it took an entire mainstream documentary for any authorities to even bother listening. As we know, the Hulu documentary went live on October 12th, 2023. On the exact day of Halloween in 2023, the Tennessee Attorney General posted a tweet that perked everyone's ears up. Happy Halloween. Today, the Attorney General of Tennessee sent a letter to McKamey Manor raising serious concerns about its business practices in operating its extreme haunted attraction. This office continues to prioritize the safety and well-being of all Tennesseans. #Halloween, #Tennessee. Several outlets published the letter, which read, "Dear Mr. McKamey, this office is responsible for protecting the public interest, including enforcing consumer protection laws in Tennessee. I'm writing to express serious concerns about McKamey Manor, the extreme haunted attraction you operate in Summertown, Tennessee. It's our understanding that you own McKamey Manor and relocated from California to Summertown, Tennessee in 2017 following your San Diego operation being shut down due to public outcry. A 2019 promotional video from McKamey Manor's YouTube page depicts some of the horrors visitors are subjected to, which includes getting dragged via heavy chains or locked into confined spaces while water pours in. We are concerned by recent reports regarding McKamey Manor and its practices. Specifically, various sources and reports allege that McKamey Manor either does not offer or honor a means for a participant to stop the tour. In Hulu's 2023 documentary about McKamey Manor, you are quoted as saying, "We're known for no quitting and no safe wording." Participants do not have access to the lengthy waiver that describes the risk involved with the tour before signing up, traveling long distances to Tennessee, or even before the tour begins. Former participants describe the adrenaline and pressure they felt when reviewing the waiver at the start of the tour. One interviewee from the Hulu documentary stated, "I had too much excitement going through my veins at the time. If the waiver would have said that a man is going to come out of the woods and murder you during this event, I would have signed it. The supposed $20,000 prize offered to anyone who completes the McKamey Manor challenge does not exist and or is impossible to win. When a journalist from the Nashville scene asked you if anyone has won the challenge, you responded by saying, 'Of course not, and they never will, because it's so mentally and physically challenging, but it will be the most exciting thing you've ever done.' In the coming days, our office will be sending you a formal request for documents and information to answer the numerous questions we have about the business practices of McKamey Manor and whether these practices violate consumer protection laws. We will direct these requests to the address listed above unless you request they be directed somewhere else." This is the incident that Russ was talking about in his lawsuit with Hulu and the Wolf, how he was saying he had to spend his own money to fight this. That lawsuit was filed on April 8th, 2024, but less than 2 weeks earlier, Russ had filed yet another lawsuit. This time, it was against the Tennessee Attorney General, Jonathan Skermetti, as well as the state fire marshal, Carter Lawrence. Russ has been a busy bee this year, throwing lawsuits all over the place. This specific lawsuit spills quite a bit of tea as well. When Russ moved to Tennessee in 2017, you may remember that there was a public outcry by the residents of Tennessee. There was a Change.org petition in 2019 that nearly 200,000 people have signed, demanding that the Tennessee State Senate take action to shut McKamey Manor down. Obviously, nothing ever came of that. As Russ states in the lawsuit, the Lawrence County Commissioner Scott Franks posted this community alert to his Facebook page where he states, "We are actively exploring our options on getting this operation shut down. County Executive T.R. Williams, Sheriff Brown, County Attorney Holt, and District Attorney Brent Cooper are all involved in this effort." At that time, this was just the beginning of Russ's battle with the state of Tennessee, and he had just moved there. Over the coming years, Russ would be subjected to investigators showing up to his property to see what all the malarkey was about. A follow-up investigation was conducted regarding the fire code violations on November 21st, 2023, where he was again asked to make some corrections to his property or else continued inspections would occur. Anyway, the point of this lawsuit is to keep the Attorney General and the Fire Marshal from as the lawsuit puts it, further violating Mr. McKamey's constitutional rights. He says these men are trying to get him to incriminate himself, which is hilarious considering that all of these investigations have come about because of Russ's own actions and public outcry and the way Russ just like holds himself publicly. He also says that these investigations are warrantless, even though every time people go out to the property to do their inspections, they find that he continuously refuses to fix the issues that they find. He also cites his right to remain silent and the right to be free of retaliation for constitutionally protected conduct, though I'm not sure why Russ believes that any of his conduct is lawful. In my non-professional opinion, I don't think that any of these investigations are warrantless. And I'm sure it would be very easy for any of the defendants in this case to produce evidence to the contrary. In this investigation, the Attorney General filed a request for information which demanded that Russ provide specific documents, write a statement under oath, and produce a witness to provide testimony in favor of Russ. They also specifically demanded answers for the following: identify any and all procedures you and or agents of McKamey Manor have to monitor the health and safety of participants while they're participating in a tour. Has McKamey Manor ever facilitated medical treatment for a participant? To your knowledge, have any participants sought medical treatment soon after participating in a tour? If so, identify in a list form the names of the participants and the injuries if known. To the entire internet's knowledge, yeah, plenty of people have had to seek medical treatment after their McKamey Manor tours. I've already mentioned Rhett Silvis in this video. In my last video, I mentioned Lori Brotherton. She had to seek medical care after her McKamey Manor tour, and there have been others. But it sounds like what Russ is trying to say is mind your own business, all of that's irrelevant. I don't see it that way at all, but alright. Russ then complains about how unfair the documentary was for 32 paragraphs, which seems unnecessary because the people Russ is suing were not involved in the creation of the documentary, but Russ tries to make it relevant since the documentary is what prompted the investigation in the first place. It seems like he's basically saying, look, all of these things are lies, so therefore the investigation is unfair and it's based on a lie, which we all know it's not. The documentary provides plenty of evidence to support its claims. Everything Russ is complaining about regarding this documentary seems like it would be relevant to the lawsuit against Hulu, but this just feels like Russ is over-explaining himself, and as mentioned, this is often a response from an anxious person to try to control the narrative. I see it as a pattern of behavior. Regarding the fire marshal's investigation, this part says it all, in my opinion. The same day that defendant Scarmetti issued the request for information, November 15th, 2023, an anonymous complaint was filed with defendant Lawrence's office. The only specific information supporting the complaint was, the barn is being used as a special amusement facility. This means that whoever filed the complaint had to know about a previous complaint filed on November 18th, 2019, which was resolved by agreement that Mr. McKamey, that the barn would no longer be used for the McKamey Manor shows. The term special amusement is an arcane term of art from the Chapter 202 of the International Fire Code. That Mr. McKamey's barn was even considered a special amusement building was a determination reached in the resolution of the first complaint in 2019. This is all speculation, and it really doesn't have a place in this lawsuit, in my opinion. He's saying, oh, the whole thing was already resolved, when clearly, based on the evidence we have of Ben's tour taking place inside the barn, nearly 4 years after this whole situation had been resolved, Russ did not hold up his end of the deal. He continued to hold manor tours in the barn after that first investigation. There's a ton of evidence for this, and therefore any follow-up investigations would be warranted. This 2023 investigation found that the original 2019 investigation had not had its initial complaints fixed. None of that would have been a problem if Russ would have just held up his end of the deal and kept contestants out of the barn. But he very obviously did not do that. Instead, Russ just decided to be sneaky, and he told his cameramen not to film certain parts of the barn, always keep the camera pointed down at the ground so no one can tell the location of this haunt. Like, Russ is just mad that he got caught, and so now he's just throwing a tantrum and claiming that these investigations are against his constitutionally protected rights. And come on, dude. It's just just not. It's nonsense. It's wild. So, what are Russ's demands here? He's basically demanding that the court find defendants liable of violating Russ's constitutional rights, and additionally, Mr. McKamey respectfully requests this honorable court enter a declaration with the effect of a final judgment that he is entitled under the Fifth Amendment to not participate in the request for information in any manner with no penalty as a result. Basically saying, I don't want to provide you with anything you're asking for because it might lead to you discovering evidence that I committed a crime, which, hey Russ, maybe don't commit crimes then. I don't know, like life is so much easier when you're not a criminal. He also demands that if there are to be any more investigations of his property, that they have a warrant supported by probable cause to do so. And that should be easy enough for the fire marshal to do, since Russ is so sloppy with his incompetency that his mistakes are broadcasted all over the place. Russ also wants the court to tell the Attorney General that he's not allowed to investigate Russ anymore. Unfortunately for Russ, this didn't go his way, since on August 22nd, 2024, the court officially dismissed this lawsuit in a very long document that can be compared to just an absolute floor wiping of Russ and his ridiculous tantrum that he and his lawyer were trying to throw with the courts. I'm not going to go through that document here, but I'll have it linked in the description if you want to read the court's reasoning for this dismissal. It's pretty interesting, but all that's relevant here is that the case was dismissed and Russ looks like a ding-dong. Now, Russ actually tried to have this dismissal reversed by the courts by saying that the court was essentially biased against him based off of another unrelated series of events, which we're going to dive into right now. But from what I can tell, the investigation by the Tennessee Attorney General against Russ McKamey is still active today, and Russ's attempt to get out of it was a fruitless endeavor. But honestly, as of a couple months ago, Russ had a whole other mess on his plate. On Friday, July 19th, around 4 a.m., Russ was arrested at his home. At first, the charges against him just had to do with domestic assault against his then-girlfriend, Shay, yet another gorgeous young woman that Russ somehow managed to get to fall into his grasp. There is a 40-year age gap between the two of them. I'm not saying age gap relationships are necessarily wrong, but personally I get the ick from Russ and basically all of his relationships because they all follow the same pattern. Old man looks for young hot girls. Old man projects his inner turmoil and insecurities onto said young hot girls. Old man tells the young hot girls how much he loves to fantasize about children. Old man physically and or mentally abuses young hot girl. Young hot girl leaves, the cycle repeats. This has happened multiple times over the past few years, and I find this fascinating because looking at Russ, I see no charm whatsoever. I find his personality to be disgusting, nasty. I am so unbelievably turned off by this man. I feel like I can smell him through my computer screen, and I wouldn't go near him even if someone paid me to. So it is incredible to me that Russ continuously keeps finding new, young, beautiful girls over and over again who end up falling in love with him. Well, not just falling in love with him. We have women who give up their entire lives to move in with him. In Shay's case, she gave up her dog and moved out of state to be with him, only to wind up being a victim of serious domestic violence. Now, Shay has been very active online, even before she met Russ. She posts to TikTok a lot, she has a spicy site, if you know what I'm saying. She's kind of a micro-influencer in a way. So when she started seeing Russ, we got a few glimpses into their private life when Shay would go live on social media, and people were already becoming concerned for Shay's safety.
We went to Trans World like we do every year. Mr. Sunshine showed up. In tow was this female, which at that point I don't think me or Chris ever saw before. So we made a point to kind of give her her space, give her her privacy, and not bother her.
You just saw her there with Russ and you're like, oh shit, he's got a new one.
We didn't know.
We didn't know.
When Russ is at Trans World, a lot of people just follow him. We didn't know if that she was just somebody that was randomly following him. We knew he was there with someone, and we thought maybe she was
a friend of that person. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Right. So we had not connected those dots at all, and it wasn't until a handful of days later she made a comment on one of our lives, and we're like, oh shit, this is that girl.
I asked her, I was like, if you're up for it, let's have a civil conversation. And it wasn't hard hitting. It wasn't confrontational in any manner. You know, she might have gotten a different impression of us than what Russ was telling people about us.
It's kind of a part of the McKamey Manor road trip. You know, if somebody is about to go through the haunt or showing interest or going through the interview process, different people from the team will reach out and offer a different perspective and say, hey, do you know what you're getting yourself into, you know? As an attempt to stop, I mean, the whole thing is no more victims. And now you see somebody who is maybe either a new contestant or a new part of his life, and she's reached out to you and, hey, we should all talk. If you want to know why we've got a problem with your friend here, you know, we'll let you know. I think it was a natural evolution of why you guys started talking in the first place. She's truly the kind of person who likes to see the good in everybody.
Yeah.
Even the monsters. What started as just like a, hey, you know, we're presenting our side why we've got a problem with them, and she's presenting her side, I turned into like they had a group chat created, and it turned into, you know, he's my boyfriend.
So she reached out to you guys before she started dating Russ?
They were technically dating, but they weren't living together.
And then when I found out that like she might be moving there, I reached out and introduced myself, and I felt like maybe she just needed, maybe it would be good to speak with a female. And it was hard. It was hard watching somebody walk into, you know, about to walk into fire, but it happened.
Right.
And then that kind of turned into just a casual friendship between all four of us, where it was mostly her reaching out or mentioning something when she felt uncomfortable or scared.
She started mentioning a few things, and those things became more and more and more as their relationship grew and she moved into Tennessee.
In this live stream, the audience was saying some nasty stuff about Russ, and you can see and hear him becoming very obviously upset.
Why do you put up with her? See, that's what I don't understand. Why do you do it?
I can't see it.
Boston Market Gravy Girl says
Stop it.
most dangerous stunt being his girlfriend. Someone had to say it. Sorry to say. See, this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm talking about. Why do you put up with that ugly garbage stuff? And she continues on. Why do you do it? See, this is the thing.
I didn't see it.
Well, she's continuing. And then there's Brandon Vance. You know, why do you do it? Take a side. Why do you put up with her crap? And then there she goes, because it's the truth. And you just let her say it. So this is the problem. Most dangerous stunt being his lawyer.
Stop it.
Do you see what I'm saying? And you let them continue doing that. Choose your side. You've done that.
Stop.
You've done it.
Stop it. I came over here to be with you.
I understand, but that's exactly what I'm talking about. I need to continue on, and you let them do it.
I came over to be with you.
That's not the point. That's not the point. So simple.
You can tell that Shay is just so numb to the whole thing. Eventually, Russ gets up and says that he's going to take a walk. When Shay asks where he's going, he doesn't answer. Instead, he gets in his car and drives off.
Where are you going? Where are you going?
This is how Russ treated Shay when he knew people were watching. Behind closed doors, it was so much worse.
Shouldn't have anything to do with them unless you're going after them. You shouldn't be doing shit. You shouldn't be socializing with them. How scummy is that you are even having any kind of conversation with those dirt bags? These dirt bags. That's why I'm pissed.
Leave me alone.
Open the door.
Leave me alone.
Stop locking me out unless you think I'm this monster or something. Stop locking me out.
You already said enough.
Stop getting all discombobulated in your brain. I need you to open the door. I'm hurting right now. Please open the door.
What do you want?
Open the door. Don't make me into a monster. I didn't do anything.
You're saying that's okay.
In my case, it doesn't mean anything. Stop making me into a monster. It's my and PTSD and shit and curiosity, and it's happened a couple of times. Quit turning me into a monster. You're doing insane things. Open the door.
I'm not doing anything.
Open the door. The kind of things you're saying, that is sick. This is what you think. This is what you think about me. These are the fears you have about if your kid got hurt around me or something. What? What are you saying? Open the door. Think I'm a good person, honey? Think I'm some kind of weirdo and sicko going after kids? Do you think that? Stop planting some kind of seed in my brain. Get up. You're getting up right now. You might miss Brandon and Chris. You can go live and talk to them some more.
So you can yell at me again.
Well, someone needs to yell at you about it. Come on, get your brain normal. Get your brain okay.
Ross, there's a difference between
What?
cute and attractive.
Ah!
Kids are cute. There's a difference between attractive.
Oh yeah, that word attractive like freaks you out.
Because attractive means you're attracted.
Okay.
That's what that means.
No, it doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that to me. It means something different to you.
It means the definition.
Okay, well, you're a definition of an idiot. I need you to get up right now. No, get up.
That hurts. Stop.
Get up.
Stop.
Get up.
That hurts.
I don't care. Get up.
Oh, that hurts.
Get up right now. Tired of this bullshit with you. Get the up. Get up.
Stop. Ow.
Get up right now.
What I just played for you were some of the voice messages that Shay sent to Boston. Russ had no idea that Shay had been recording the altercation. This relationship between Shay and Boston may have been what saved Shay's life, because on the night of these voice messages being sent, Shay suddenly stopped responding to Boston, which prompted Boston to call the police, leading to Russ's arrest.
For everything that we were hearing and witnessing, of course, from afar, this is all just coming from her, but everything that we were hearing, in my opinion, I'm sure the boys feel the same, we were witnessing a very abusive relationship. She had like extreme feelings for him. She knew there was really big problems. She wanted to get him help. She was convinced that she would be the person after 65 years that could help him. And listen, that is admirable.
That's also very common with abuse victims, though. That's why they say a lot of times, yeah.
Yes, so it shows that she's an amazing soul, but it also shows that she is in this cycle. She also would say, I can't leave because he's going to do the things he's done to me to other people. The night before, she was doing a lot of lives and he was doing a lot of lives, and she would send us messages saying, Russ is making me go live, like right after they had a huge fight, and telling her what to say. He'd be like, we need to pretend like that last live was a joke, because they would fight in their lives. They got in a huge fight, and she went to the van, his van outside, and went live for, I think it was over an hour, just crying. They had officially broken up, and she needed her space. She wanted to feel safe. She messaged me and was like, yeah, I'm gonna sleep in here. Then she gets quiet for a long time, and I think it was literally the next day they're live again and everything's good. The back and forth was frustrating, but that night she told me that the night before, when she was out in the van, that he came out, hit her with a flashlight, and dragged her out of the van. She's telling me, without really telling me, that some things had repeatedly happened to her that were bad, that she was not letting us know about. And then she says the TV just went off, which we've had this conversation before. It happens all the time, because she'd sleep in the bedroom, lock the door, and he'd sleep out in the chair. When the TV goes off, it means he's coming to the door. So she sends me a voice clip of just quietness, and I'm like, I can't hear anything. She's like, he's standing outside the door just breathing. A few minutes go by and I get another recording, and it's him banging on the door, which we've had these before. But now I know physical violence has happened to her, non-consensual, and being hit and drug out of a van. So the voice clip she sends me is him banging on the door, let me in, I need to talk to you, my head's not right. And that's the last thing I get. She usually replies like promptly. At that point, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna do it. Welfare check. I called 911. I tell them the information. I told them about what had happened the night previously, about her being hit and drug out of the van with a flashlight. They're like, all right, we're gonna get her soon. Messaging her still. So I say, Shay, I called the police. I'm so sorry. I didn't know what else to do. I'm worried about you. And she finally responds and said, yeah, they're here. And she said they're arresting him. I'm thinking, okay, are they arresting him from the DV the night before? And then she basically breaks down and said he's going to jail for DV, thank you for saving my life.
According to Shay, Russ had asphyxiated her to the point of unconsciousness, and this was not the first time it had happened. In this live from before Russ was arrested, we see some really eerie foreshadowing where Shay is saying that she fell asleep, and it appears as though Russ doesn't know that Shay is live, so he says, "You didn't just fall asleep." And then after he realizes that Shay was live, he changes to a more sarcastic and upbeat tone, saying, yeah, you fell asleep.
I fell asleep.
Yeah. You fell asleep.
I fell asleep.
Huh?
I fell asleep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's hard to know what they're referring to, but considering that Russ was arrested and charged with attempted murder after he choked Shay to the point of unconsciousness, and she says that happened multiple times, it's probably safe to speculate about what Russ was implying. We should all know by now that this is a kink that some people have, and it's practiced consensually with their partners, and there's a safe word that is strictly adhered to. It shouldn't come as a surprise that Russ doesn't really take no for an answer, at least as far as contestants in McKamey Manor go, so I doubt that it's any different with his girlfriends. Thankfully, Shay was okay. Initially, Russ was hit with a domestic violence charge, posted his $1,000 bail, and was told not to contact Shay. But this issue was escalated shortly afterwards from domestic violence charges to straight up attempted murder and rape, and his bond shot up to $100,000, in which he ended up paying $10,000 of it to get out of jail. Russ had to wear an ankle monitor, had to surrender all of his firearms, which, come on, I doubt Russ gave up every single one of his guns, but that's just my own speculation, knowing people like Russ. The order of protection against Russ still stood until the trial, and he was unable to contact Shay.
We found out that the charges had been upgraded to rape and second-degree attempted murder.
2 counts, second-degree attempted murder.
We had known at this point, before I made the phone call, that she had been choked non-consensually, passing out, having seizures, and sometimes she would explain to us that it was consensual, but then she would tell us about this time when they were just sitting on the porch, or just she was sitting on a chair and he would just choke her out until she passed out and had a seizure.
He has no limiter. He goes to an extreme. It always has to be more than that. There's no stopping. It always just has to get bigger and bigger and bigger and push that envelope so far until things go way too far. We've been lucky so far. Unfortunately, how many people have been extremely hurt? Nobody has died yet.
I mean, everyone keeps saying, like, oh, it's only a matter of time, but it's like, no, like, actually, though.
Yeah.
Like, if this time it was attempted murder, what's the next extreme after that, you know? It's like, it is so heartbreaking, and she's so young, and it's like to go through something like that at her age, and it's like, it's gonna stick with her for life, dude. Shay ended up being picked up by her brother and driven out of state to safety, but in the days following the assault, Shay still maintained that she loved Russ, and she never wished for any of this to happen.
I never said Russ tried to kill me. I think the charges are going way too far. I obviously still love him. I'm still in love with this man. I just keep thinking of seeing him in court and getting to hug him.
It's common for victims of domestic violence to still love their abuser. In the case of Russ, a lot of it may be that his victims make excuses for him and feel bad for him because he has a traumatic past. He claims to have PTSD, and he blames all of his erratic behavior on those things. Oftentimes, victims think that they can help fix them, so they put up with the abuse while they work on improving the conditions for their loved one. But the truth is, you can't fix people. And there's never a good excuse for an abuser to cause harm to their victims, period. It's been a few months since all of this went down, and Shay appears to be coming to the conclusion that Russ was an abuser and that she was his victim. And just as she started realizing the truth for herself, the unthinkable happened. The charges against Russ were dropped. According to the Tennessean, Russ's lawyer sent the publication a statement via email. After District Attorney General Brent Cooper personally reviewed the evidence we collected over the past 2 months and spoke with Mr. McKamey's accuser, who was present in person this morning, he decided to voluntarily and unconditionally dismiss all 4 charges against Mr. McKamey because the allegations had no merit whatsoever. General Cooper's diligence and professionalism in his decision is commendable. I previously said the truth would come out. General Cooper's unqualified decision should tell you everything you need to know. According to Shay, though, she basically says that the charges were dropped because although she said no at the beginning of the altercation, she eventually stopped saying no, or she didn't say no enough.
So, even though I said no, and I said no 3 times, because I didn't continue to say no the entire time that the interaction was happening. That's one reason they gave me as to why.
To me, that seems ridiculous. Oftentimes, a victim will stop resisting so that the abuser's assault will be over faster and they'll suffer less harm from it. This is very common knowledge, but there was more to the court's decision than that.
I'll tell you what the big thing was. What he does, and what he's always done, and Chris can attest to this, is he has other people do things for him. She was being contacted by women who were in his Facebook group, and she was sharing their conversations that they were having with her with us. These were women saying, Russ would never hurt you. If he did that, it was because he was just, you guys got in a fight and you just wanted, that's how he makes up. Mm-hmm. He would never intentionally hurt you. Other people saying things like, he's going to die in prison. He's going to be killed. Or he's going to off himself. And she's thinking, I love this man. He couldn't have meant to hurt me. I'd rather hear what these women are saying. She got extremely manipulated to the point where we had to step back.
What kind of morally corrupt person do you have to be to do that?
Well, these people are also and not to give them excuses. But these people are also being manipulated by the master manipulator. She was asked by Russ through a third party to make videos downplaying it. So at that time, when she's still going through that, she made that video. He held on to that video. She went through the motions, had a wake-up call, realized what had happened, that she, dealt with her trauma, and then she got asked to come to court and started sharing with us the things that she had done, the mistakes she had made. And that's her big thing now, is she wants victims to know, if you're in that mindset when you first get out, don't do that. Don't contact the person. Don't give them anything they can use against you. In my opinion, that video she made is why the charges got dropped. One of these people who you were kind of talking to us through this person said, this is how we save him, because he's going to die in jail. This is how you save him. We need you to make a video saying XYZ.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. And I made the video. However, he wanted me to lie in the video, and that's something I refused to do. So I told the truth, but then I added flair, I didn't necessarily feel unsafe and stuff like that.
You downplayed
it. Which is what got him out of it. Even the district attorney told me, based on everything we've seen, he was planning to kill you. He was certain Russ would be convicted, this would move forward and go to a real court. He seemed very confident. Then he went into the other room, talked to Russ's attorney, maybe 45 minutes, an hour, came back. It was different. It was completely different. He was acting strange. They knew the whole time that I had made those videos for Russ. I had showed them evidence that I was told what to say in those videos. I think I said something to the effect of, does it not matter that I said no? He replied, but you stopped saying no. I was silent. I never gave consent. So because I was silent after saying no and it being ignored, he had his hand on my throat. I'm not gonna keep saying no and piss him off. I said no once and it was ignored, and his hand was on my throat. Well, he brought up, that I sent Russ pictures and videos, and I was like, okay, I was told to send him pictures and videos. Does that not matter? And he said, nobody made you send them though. I was told if you send him pictures and videos, he won't be so depressed. So I sent him pictures and videos because I felt so guilty.
None of us knew until very, very recently. I think it was 3 days before you went to Tennessee that you actually shared that video with me. And I watched it, and I told you, I said, they're gonna try to use this against you. But the good thing is you've got all this proof that all of these people were witness tampering and that Russ contacted you via third party. So that should balance it out. I mean, they had all the evidence. I had every hope that they'd be able to easily counteract that and go forward with the case.
This is how he convinced me to not move forward. He told me, I can push this forward and you're gonna be humiliated for hours all day while his attorney tears you apart and cross-examines you because you messaged him. That's when I was like, all right, what do we do here? And he said there's nothing to do.
Unfortunately, it seems like there's no justice for Shay in this situation, and that's really upsetting to me because Russ will do this again. He has had a ton of relationships with young women who end up leaving due to similar circumstances. It's my opinion that Russ just keeps getting more extreme in a lot of aspects of his life, but specifically his love life. And in this case, Shay could have died. It's only a matter of time before he crosses that line, in my opinion. So, in conclusion, Russ's criminal charges have been dropped. He still has one open lawsuit against the Wolf that has yet to reach a conclusion. The Tennessee Attorney General is still going forward with the investigation, and McKamey Manor hasn't held any tours in over a year. The only person in Russ's corner outside of his handful of cult members is his lawyer. He has made statements suggesting that he'll be coming after Reckless Ben legally, although he has yet to do so, and I feel like that lawsuit would be dismissed because Ben really didn't do anything warranting a lawsuit. The truth is, McKamey Manor's over. He might start tours again someday, but we've seen what goes on in the manor these days. He can't hold contestants in the barn, so he just makes people crawl around in his front yard to the point of exhaustion, or he waterboards them while they crawl through a rusty maze, if they don't give up before then. It's hard to say what the future holds for Russ McKamey, but a successful haunt is likely never going to be in the cards for him again.
Our goal when we started McKamey Manor Road Trip was we were prepared that the law would do the justice that was needed, and the investigation's still going. It's still up in the air. After this last court trial, are we a little more yay, we think it's going to happen? Probably not. Our mission was Russ lived by that legend. He is a legend, and the stuff that he grew with is a legend. Every year on Halloween, you see all these clickbait ads of scariest haunted house, blah, blah, blah. Our goal was to take that legend from him, because without that legend, he loses the following, and he's just a nobody. And guess what? This year, I have yet to see one of those clickbait ads. The ads that I see now is owner of the most extreme haunted house arrested for attempted murder. His legend has been destroyed, and to me that is a win, and now he has nothing.
He's
He
got
has
nothing.
nobody coming to see him. He has a Facebook group that's closed. He's been outed by showing his true colors and the kind of person he really is, and now he's alone in the woods, in the backwoods of Tennessee, and I'm happy.
And with that, guys, that's all I got. That is a rough breakdown of all of the events that have happened in the past year with McKamey Manor. Again, don't forget to click the subscribe button and click the notification bell, because in a few days, if not like a week or so, hopefully before Halloween, I'm going to be uploading an extended interview with Horror Road Trip that spills some more tea, gives a lot more context, tells a much more detailed story about what is going on here. So if you're looking forward to that, obviously make sure you hit that subscribe button. So before we end it here, I want to say thank you to a few people. Again, Aura, thank you so much for sponsoring this video. If you want a 2-week free trial of Aura, you can go to aura.com/Savannah Marie, and I really hope that you'll check it out for yourself. And now I want to thank my patrons and my members, guys. The list of names I'm about to read off are my financial supporters. They get access to things like our private Discord server, we have a postcard club, and sometimes even more than that. So if any of that sounds good to you, you can go to patreon.com/Savannah Marie, or you can click the join button beneath this video to get access to my YouTube memberships. So whatever platform you want to join on works fine for me. And with that, the biggest thank you in the whole wide world goes to Hula Chowdown, Jacqueline Nutton, Kessie Drew, KJ Barnes, Leanne, Caroline Reed, Daniel Urena, Maddie Darley, Ray, Stephanie Mayfield, Ferd Turgeson Esquire, AJC, Love to Be Evil, Just Mark, Amber Price, Baby Pink Pearl, Alice Wagner, LaSalle Story, Fallon Harris, Hannah, Jessica Billhart, and Emion. And to the rest of my financial supporters, thank you so much for being here and being you. You just making it to the end of this video helps me, because YouTube loves watch time, so I just appreciate that you're here. So stay tuned for that extended interview in a short manner of time, and I'll see you then. Bye.